Pacers lose their draft pick to the Clippers, the 5th overall pick. The card flashes up. It's headed to the Clippers. The worst case scenario for this trade. What does it mean for the Pacers and the trade? What did Kevin Pritchard say? So much to get to from here in Chicago on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Sunday/Monday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and Circle City Spin. And today, hello from a ballroomy thingy at Navy Pier, where the draft lottery concluded now 5 hours ago. People will be coming in and out of here during this. And the Pacers lose their pick. 5th overall headed to the Clippers. So many things to get to. What this means for the trade, what this means for the Pacers, what this means for Ivica Zubac. But I think the place to start is reflections of the trade, because this, I know that fans naturally want to talk about the positives of their team and the hopeful side and things of that nature. And then I don't think that's a bad thing for fans to be at all. But this is the worst case scenario by default. When you trade a pick protected 1 through 4 and 10 through 30, the worst possible thing you can trade is the 5th pick. And that is what the Pacers sent to the Clippers. By definition, this was A, the most likely one individual outcome of the day was the 5th pick going to the Clippers, and B, the worst case scenario for the Pacers. That's not even like opinion. That is just like fact of the matter stuff, looking at the numbers of the day. And yet, of course, I was standing 30 feet from Kevin Pritchard and Chad Buchanan when they announced the pick. I could see TJ McConnell on the stage. Very obvious stinger for them. They will, and we'll get to this tomorrow, the ripple effects from this as it pertains to roster building for the Pacers in terms of spending and free agency, future flexibility, stuff that Kevin and Chad and the rest of the team have and will. Rick Carlisle talked about on the radio. They'll tell you this stuff, and they are not lying. That is all true things. Getting the pick would have been significantly better than all of those things. It was not possible for them to lose a top 4 pick in this draft. It was not possible. And it was thus not possible for them to lose one of these very prized prospects that I talked about on this show and you'll hear talked about for forever. And yet they could have gotten one of them with better luck today. They did not get him. That is bad. That makes the trade that they made look a little worse. It just does. I know here's the thing. I am deep to my core a process guy when it comes to NBA transactions, when it comes to team strategy, both on the court and in team building, all sorts of that stuff. I believe process it gives is the smart way to think, even though I also think this is true. You have to judge people on the results. And that's sometimes unfair, but that is the business the NBA is. I say that to say this. I thought the process of the Pacers trading the pick that became Kawhi Leonard for George Hill was good. They have been talked about negatively for that trade for years. The process, I thought, of trading Paul George for Sabonis and Oladipo was bad. That trade turned out great. And here's the thing. They deserve a ton of credit for that turning out great because they identified 2 players that they believed were better than the market. They got no picks for Paul George, and it worked out awesome. They're still to this day benefiting from that. Derek Kramer does the Paul George trade tree every year. I say that to say, if you listen all the time, know I talk about the process of trades. Was this a good process? Is this something that was smart to do? Is this reflective of the market of something similar? And before the Ivica Zubac trade happened on this show, I said, I think the price for Zubac would be something to the effect of Ben Mathurin, Isaiah Jackson, and 2 firsts. And that's exactly what it was, minus a 2nd rounder. They had to protect this year's pick to do it. That's very bold, incredibly risky. They tried to have their cake and eat it too. And had it worked out, they would have gotten a ton of praise, right? That is why this is a hard trade to judge from a process perspective, because had today gone differently, had today gone with the most likely outcome was them landing in the top 4, 52% chance. Kevin Pritchard and them gets a ton of praise. But because the coin flip does not go their way, they don't. And so the process of the trade did not change, right? So I like to and love to judge transactions from that lens. And it should be noted of that the 50% chance was what it was, but the result is what it is now. And they will be looked at forever as having traded away the 5th pick, which was, again, the number 1 most likely individual pick outcome from today to the Clippers. This trade could look different. I'm rambling about the trade. I apologize. But this trade could look different for many reasons. And I will turn the eyes to Zubac in the second segment. But if the 5th pick player is very good, if it's a guard who would not have fit at all with the Pacers, if the Pacers completely nail the 2031 pick that they now get to keep from this if they do something dramatic in free agency this year, that they now have a smidge of flexibility to do so, or if Zubac is awesome, which we'll talk about in a second, things could look much better than this. But right this moment is probably going to be the low point of valuation of the trade. And it just does look worse. It just does. Even if as a process guy, I thought this was the right value and I believed in the process, but a coin flip is a coin flip, and they lost the coin flip today. However, I'm pushing back on some Vance stuff. I keep seeing they traded away a top 4 pick. They didn't. They literally could not have done that. That was not a possible outcome of the day. The top 4 guys that, oh my gosh, they traded Darren Peterson to the Clippers. That's impossible unless he falls to 5, which there'd be a reason for that. The other thing it's driving me crazy is for years I heard from fans about this front office never being aggressive enough. They wanted them to be more aggressive. They literally were. This is the risk that comes with trades like this. Today, even without the Zubac trade, they would have had a chance to draft Flemings, Acuff, Wagler, and no center, and no salaries to trade to get that center, or fewer of them. It would have been way harder for them to really get a really good center if this was the result today, unless some team really loved the 5th pick, but you're not getting somebody. You would have had to probably include other. Like, I don't think the 5th pick plus Mather and plus Jackson would have got you Zubac right now. That's just my opinion. Anyway, that's a lot of thoughts about this. But to be clear, this is the worst case scenario for the Pacers that happened today. It just is. And now they have to move on from that. However, they do now have the clarity of knowing that. And speaking of clarity, I am today approved by media through this podcast. So I can actually share comments acquired in interviews. So let's just hear from Kevin Pritchard for a while. About what, him believing in this core and Zubac, because I think that's the next place I would like to go on this podcast.
We're all disappointed. But I think the message is last year in the draft, we had a pick. We pushed in this year. And we felt like all during this year, we really needed a center. And structurally, when you look at our team, that hole is something we needed to fill pretty badly. And when you construct a trade, we felt a little pressure during the trade deadline to make that trade because of contracts and the way we wanted to make sure we kept our top 7. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. Disappointed because this is a great draft. Everybody says, well, why didn't you protect it, a lot deeper? Unfortunately, we weren't able to. That was the vig for us to get Zoo. And you look at like a lot of these big trades that's out there, and you see 4 and 5 and 6 and swaps around a starter potential. And we really think Zoo is a great fit for us. And at the end of the day, like, this is what is really important. I felt like that championship team, we needed to fill that starting center. That was priority 1 because they've earned the right to go try to get a championship. And that was not doable with protecting this to 8 or 9 to 10 or wherever. I know the Twitterverse is probably going to be a little brutal. And I get it, man. I get it. My heart was beating like it was Game 7. And to those people, I'm sorry. But I can promise you at the end of the day, we're going to be an organization that figures it out. We're very resourceful. And our future still looks good. Our starting 5 is a legitimate starting 5. And I love our second unit. We're developing some younger players. And you never know what happens in the draft. Maybe
good stuff from KP there, or at least revealing stuff. His opening monologue was almost 5 minutes long, which is great. I love to hear his just immediate thoughts about everything. And I would like to take this now to the next, what I consider part of today in this transaction. That's Ivica Zubac, including comments from Pritchard. I apologize. I have such few notes of things I actually want to get to today. And I don't know how long the comments I'm going to put from KP in here are. So this podcast could be super long. It could be super short. It's going to be all over the place. But that's coming up next year on Locked On Pacers. But first, everybody, let me talk to you about 2 wonderful groups of people. First up is FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here and every possession matters. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $150 $50 in bonus bets just for getting started. Many people love using FanDuel for various reasons, but especially in the playoffs because everything's right there in one place. You can check the stats, the trends. You can see the matchups before making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. Whether you're looking at player props or just following your favorite stars, it adds another level of excitement to every game. It's an easy app to navigate. It makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. Head to FanDuel.com to get started on FanDuel. Play your game. Let's also very quickly talk about Indeed. You have workplace chaos. You have deadlines stacking up. Your inbox is overflowing. The one position you have to fill still, it's sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed-sponsored jobs who help you reach people who actually fit what you're looking for with skills and experience on location you need. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. Instead, Indeed will help you find them. Here's the stat that says it all. In this minute, I'll be talking to you about Indeed. Companies like yours will make 27 hires on Indeed, according to their data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed-sponsored jobs. Less searching, more time actually interviewing candidates. So you have less stress, less time, and more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed-sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support Locked On Pacers by saying you heard about it on this very show. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed-sponsored jobs. And we're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen should be Locked On Knicks. They swept their way to the conference finals. It's a huge NBA story, but Locked On Wizards, obviously another natural choice after they win the NBA draft lottery. And check out the Everydayer Club here at Locked On. You can get Locked On Pacers ad-free plus members-only Discord access where we talk about things like the draft lottery. I actually should pop in there now that the lottery is done. The link is in the description or right on the screen if you're on YouTube, LockedOnPodcast.com/Everydayer. Okay. No fun for fans. Obviously, lots of sorrow today. A lot of you rightly wanted, and I wrote this in my story afterwards about kind of Zubac and kind of this day, to have your cake and eat it too. The cake being Zubac, eating it being getting a top 4 pick. Some would view it the other way. The cake being the top 4 pick, eating it being having Zubac. Regardless, they are a tandem here. And to me, they got their cake and they don't get to eat it yet. And you can read my whole story for the many metaphors I made in this, but that is where I kind of went next. And I was thinking this already after the lottery, like how fans will feel differently now about this trade will be channeled to the player that was acquired in the trade. That's natural. That's how people are. So Ivica Zubac now becomes a very central figure for the Pacers. Listen, he's a very good player. He's been a top 10 center in the league for a number of years, floating around that time. 2 seasons ago, 2024-25, he was probably closer to the 5th best center in the league. He finished 18th in All-NBA voting, like 3 spots off of making an All-NBA team, 6th in Defensive Player of the Year. Like, he's that good. For the Pacers last year, he was not that good. His rebounding numbers per minute were the lowest they've been since 2017-18. His field goal percentage was literally the worst it's ever been. And I don't say that to say that I don't think he fits or he's falling off or anything. I say that to say what you have seen Ivica Zubac do for the Pacers is not the player that the Pacers expect him to be, that history says he's going to be, and maybe unfortunately, that the Pacers need him to be. That is where this goes next. If he produces at the level that he is kind of crescendoed up to the last couple of years, the one that the Clippers relied on is sometimes they're second, often they're second because they were so injured, but their third best player on a team that had legitimate aspirations of winning. That's close to what he'll be for the Pacers, probably closer to the 4th best player. But that is what they need him to be now. And he can be those things. His screening is going to unlock. I'm reflecting on a lot of stuff that's already been talked about. He's literally played for the team already. His screening was something that teammates gushed over. It's going to unlock a lot for the team. He's the best screener the Pacers have had since Sabonis and the best of this era with Tyrese Haliburton. His rebounding is same thing. Best since Sabonis, something that this team desperately needs. And he lamented his rebounding twice after both games against the Knicks that the Pacers played. Donovan Clingan gave him trouble. I'm sure he would have lamented it that game, but he literally broke his ribs and got smoked in that game. And we had different things to talk about after that game. He has to be better on the glass. They're going to have to figure out the right coverages for him defensively. But I, as somebody who, again, said that this would be the price to get a guy like Zubac, think that he can be that player, like a great fit for them at the 5 and the best center they'll have had since maybe Sabonis, maybe before that. But he has to do it now. If he is not going to hit that level, I'm not even saying he has to hit the 18th best player in the league mark or 18th best All-NBA eligible player in the league. But if he's a top 50 player, just that, better than Turner, certainly if you're top 50, but in that range. If he is that, this team's going to be awesome. Like the Pacers will be awesome. Obviously, Tyrese Haliburton post Achilles is a big factor there. But that starting five has an awesome combination of bruising, defense, shooting, creativity, and then Pascal Siakam just glues it all together in a way that should be fantastic. And that is why they got him. The Pacers have said this many times. They got Zubac because they believe they can win a title right now, or they can do something similar to that. They can win a lot right now. And when you have that kind of opportunity sitting in front of you, you owe it to yourselves, you owe it to your team, you owe it to your fans to do it. They got him for this reason, because they believe he can be the center who makes that possible. He has to do it now. Zubac, at no fault of his own, has a lot of pressure on him to be, quite frankly, spectacular and up to the level that, he showed at times with the Clippers. And today's result makes that even more the case. And I say all this to say, Kevin Pritchard said the exact line I was thinking he was going to maybe like reference generally, but he straight up said it. He was talking about Zubac and reflecting on the trade. And he said, at the trade deadline, didn't know how structurally we were going to be able to get a top center. You might just be looking at free agency and using your cap, but we wouldn't have cap space. So it's a full mid-level. And that guy usually isn't the level of Zubac, right? So I agree with all that, first of all. That's part of why I said the trade timing for him made sense. But then he said the part that I kind of expected him to say. He said, so Zoo is our lottery pick. And I've seen a lot of this emotion today. And I totally understand why fans are saying this. I'm not saying you're wrong for thinking this. It's a very emotional day, a very negative day for fans. I'm not saying that this is a wrong thought, but I saw a lot of people say, well, they tanked for nothing. They lost the pick. Well, first of all, everybody would have been furious if they had the pick and they fell to fifth anyway. But second of all, they didn't. They were bad in February, which made their draft pick good enough to trade it for Ivica Zubac. And now the picks that they have in the future, they have that 2031 one back. They have ammo to, in theory, add around him. They're going to have to follow through on that. That can't be lip service. They've got to get a couple upgrades in the summer. Again, I'll talk about that tomorrow. But that is what their tank was for, was Zubac. It could have been for Zubac and a pick. Again, that's why this hurts so bad. I cannot stress that enough, that is what makes this hurt so bad to the team. But I thought Pritchard's comments like that were very interesting and very noteworthy. And I want to talk about that. I want to hear his lines about, one, believing in this core, and two, his belief in Zubac, because that is why they made this trade. That is why they were willing to do this, even with all this risk. So here's more from Kevin Pritchard.
We'll just have to seek out those next opportunities. But I just, I want to tell the fans we're going to be okay. We're going to compete at the highest level. We get Tieback. Zoo is a legit starting center that is a top, 18 player by votes last year in the NBA. And what we've learned from Zoo so far is he's super smart and he wants to fit in and he's all about winning. And again, disappointed. I'm not trying to smooth over that, and we wanted the pick, but we'll be okay. But wait till next season. Let's give this group an opportunity to go compete for a championship, because they've proven they could do it, and we've added a really good center in Zoo. We would have not got Zoo if we didn't protect it to 4. I mean, that's just it. And again, when we looked up on the board, and I think we're pretty good at looking out into the future at the next level. So the draft free agency this summer, we didn't see a starting center coming available. They're such an important thing that you gotta get one while you get. And today, like when we go forward now, we have 5 out of next 6 years drafts. We can get aggressive if we need to. Maybe it's this summer, maybe it's down the line, but we're not fully loaded, but we're pretty close.
I hope this structure is fascinating, of me toggling between me talking and opining and talking about the event, and then Kevin Pritchard providing his commentary, because that's kind of guiding where we go here. And that's what this third segment will be. He spoke for 9 minutes. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the things he said, the protections, and we'll do more of the fallout tomorrow. So that's all coming up to close out today's Locked On Pacers. One more break here, everybody, so we can talk about Rocket Money. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all of your subscriptions in one spot and help cancel the ones you don't need with just a few taps, and automatically categorizes your spending, so you can actually see where your money is going, You can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. And we're back here once again on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, whoever wins Thunder Lakers later, whoever interests you in the lottery today. The Nets fell very far. I just ran into Locked On Nets host Derek Slater in the hallway, like right before I started recording. So many interesting layers from this for your second listen today. Check out the Everyday Club, as I mention all the time. Let's close this out. A couple more things from the lottery. Again, tomorrow, and really, I have all offseason for this now. I want to talk about the fallout of this from this specific offseason's team building, because you're going to hear about, and I will tell you about, the unlocked things, including, I told you this. People asked me how to prep for the lottery mentally, and I said, pretend right now that the Pacers lost their 2031 first, and if they lose this pick, they get it back. And that is what happened. They have that pick now. That's not lip service. That's true. That's not, again, that they would have preferred to have the pick. I'm just saying that facts of the matter. They could spend money. Kevin Pritchard did answer a question about that. That will come up tomorrow that suggested maybe not as much as, and I said this already, by the way, I prepared you guys, maybe not as much as some fans think they might. We'll see. But some other things worth getting to. One is exactly that, what this means for the future of the team, right? Because they now have to figure out how to build in this offseason, and Pritchard did opine on that. So here's some of his thoughts on that.
We have a legit starting five. I feel like TJ and Obi, they've been in big games, and we really trust those guys. Jay and Michael will fight for that backup five. Jarris came, if you look at what Jarris did the second half of the year, we were impressed. And Shep, so we're not pressed to do anything, but if there's a chance to upgrade at any place, then it's up to us to look at that. And that could be using picks in the future, which we have.
I really appreciate that he just said straight up a few times that he was disappointed, the team is disappointed. I could just straight up, and should have probably, honestly, at this point, just read his post, because it takes a lot to admit what he did. And, people have kind of, I think, clowned a specific phrase of this, but he said, Kevin Pritchard tweeted this. He said, "I'm really sorry to our fans. I own taking this risk. Surprised it came down to fifth after this year. Came up fifth after this year. I thought we would do some luck, but please remember this team deserved a starting center to compete with the best teams next year. We always have been resilient." He didn't actually make the trade just on luck-based vibes, to be clear. I think that's just part of his post, but I appreciate that he admitted it's a risk, and it was a gamble, and it was very bold, and it was very bold the second they did it, and it did not pay off for them at all. And it takes a lot for a president of basketball operations to own that and be disappointed in a moment of weakness like that. But they're going to have to bet on the top seven, which is what they did originally when they made the trade in the first place. And a couple other things that I found noteworthy that I've just kind of bookmarked along the way that were interesting. For example, Michael B8, this is speaking to the Pacers lottery luck. He posted this on Blue Sky. He said, in the very first NBA draft I was born, the Pacers selected Rick Smith second overall. I'm now 38 years old, and they have not drafted that high since. And they've just had crummy luck. Somebody asked me to do this, and I haven't yet, and it would not take me very long. By the time you're listening, it's probably up. But what the odds the Pacers did not jump up in the Mathurin, Walker, and this draft now in a row is probably pretty low, right? That the lottery can be unlucky. It does not favor teams well. The Brooklyn Nets have had a terrible time. Some other posts I found interesting that I thought were important for this immediate response discussion. One is what Sam Quinn of CBS posted, which I think is a good summary of this. He said, the Pacers had a better than 50-50 shot, barely, but still, of both upgrading at center on their finals team and getting a top four pick in the draft with four prospects. They took a risk and it backfired, but I'm not going to skewer a finals team for being aggressive. I agree with that 100%, especially because, again, as Caitlin Cooper posted, and as has been said many times, the fourth pick to fifth drop for the Pacers is probably steeper than other teams, right? In perception, maybe other people view some of these guards as just as good as these top four players. I've yet to hear that myself from anybody, but even if you put that to the side, what are the Pacers going to do with another guard who'd be their third best guard? Maybe even at their, not even right now, like at their best, right? Would be their third best guard. Come on, like that. What does that do for them to draft an 18 minutes a game player with the sixth pick who they'd have to pay one day? Like that is why they would have wanted a top four pick and maybe were more willing to do the protections in that way. than perhaps some other teams. And that is another thing I want to include here. Kevin Pritchard did talk about the protections. I asked Chad Buchanan about this in February, and he kind of talked about how the negotiation came to be. But Pritchard offered even more into that in terms of how he felt like they needed to do it to get Zubac and why specifically the Clippers, were good negotiating here. Here's that part of his comments today.
Everybody says, well, why didn't you protect it, a lot deeper? Unfortunately, we weren't able to. That was the vig for us to get Zoo.
Well, I guess if I could ask, I don't know if you're allowed to say this or not, but how did you guys land on 4 as the protection between you guys and the Clippers?
It was negotiated, right. And we fought like heck. And, they're very good negotiators. We would have not got Zoo if we didn't protect it to 4. I mean, that's just it. And, again, when we looked up on the board, and I think we're pretty good at looking out into the future at the next level. So the draft free agency this summer, we didn't see a starting center coming available. They're such an important thing that you gotta get one while you get. And today, when we go forward now, we have 5 out of next 6 years drafts. We can get aggressive if we need to. Maybe it's this summer, maybe it's down the line, but we're not fully loaded, but we're pretty close.
Again, appreciate all this from KP. I hope having him in this podcast is not super confusing. Last thing I'll get to today. I bookmarked this from Young Simba. This is a stronger draft than normal. To me, the top 4 guys' floor is just incredible. Like, they're going to look really sick in the pros to me. Losing them is no fun for the Pacers. However, I would like to point this part out. This will be something that, right this second, everybody is killing this trade. And again, it looks worse. I agree with that. Everybody's killing the trade because the 5th pick is going to the Clippers. And this trade could look worse if this player is awesome. Here's the 5th pick since 2011. Ace Bailey, Ron Holland, Asar Thompson, he's really good. Jaden Ivey, Jalen Suggs, Isaac Okoro, Darius Garland, he's really good. Trae Young, he's really good. De'Aaron Fox, he's pretty good. Chris Dunn, Mario Hazonia, Dante Exum, Alex Len, Thomas Robinson, and Jonas Valanciunas. Some good players, some completely ineffective players. You just, people really, I think, overrate the, upside of a draft pick in general and don't account for the and to be clear, it's still a problem if a front office misses a pick, but people think too much pie in the sky about a pick and not as much about the downsides. And in a draft like this, where I personally, and have been told this, that there's a cut from 4 to 5, you just never know. Maybe the players will be awesome and the trade will look worse later. Maybe somebody terrible gets picked 5th and nobody even remembers. And another thing to remember is this pick almost didn't happen at all. The Pacers almost didn't have it before they got it back for that trade with the Pelicans during the finals less than a year ago today, 11 months ago. They didn't even have this pick. It's just been a wild journey for this team. And this is the cap off end of that wild journey. They lose the pick. That stinks. That absolutely stinks for the Pacers. It makes their trade look worse. They're really betting on Zubac being good. And they need to prove that they need no lip service. They need to prove that they're willing to go for it right now with this team. And there's a lot more ripple effects to get to. Tomorrow, we'll talk finances. People have asked me a lot about that already. We'll talk what Kevin Pritchard said about said finances. We'll talk about the 2031 pick being unlocked and what that sort of means in terms of flexibility and so much more. Hope this was informative and at least kind of helped you understand what happened today and feel some different way about it, perhaps. Back tomorrow talking more Pacers. You can find me on social media at Tony Arise's podcast at Locked On Pacers. Thank you all so much for listening. See ya very soon.